When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That you might work, ayy. When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That you might work, ayy. That you might work.
Welcome back to another episode of the Michel Matters Podcast. I'm Jocks Michelle.
And I'm Jackie Michelle.
Welcome back.
Hey, guys.
All right, another episode ready to go.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
I feel good. Feel like it's just another week in a life. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess to catch up on the last 2 weeks,
I
don't feel like nothing crazy has happened. We kind of got away some light, low key. We'll probably explain that later. Got to go to
the beach.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
It's been real relaxing. I've been able to work while I'm here, so didn't have to mess around and use PTO, so I'm still good for the rest of the year.
Yep.
So yeah, it's kind of been nice.
Yeah. Other than that, I feel like business has been interesting.
Booming.
Thanks to Sheila Marie at the Sheila Marie on Instagram, I believe. I do alterations for her sometimes, and she posted herself in my lingerie, and now I have a lot more orders to ship out. So shout out to her. And again, if you guys want to look at the new collection, it's at bearmarie.com/shop. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think just that whole experience, like, it showed the power of influence, like social media influence.
That's crazy. Yeah, because I was like, I need to charge my phone.
Yeah, and I was keeping track, like your followers were going up. I think you tripled your followers
in like 7 hours.
Some like just off a post, because someone posted something, tagged you in it, and because she has a lot of followers, she have a lot of influence. They liked how she looked, people follow. So that's, to me, that was crazy to see it in real time.
Yeah.
The power of influence.
Yeah. Like the whole time I wasn't even caring about the followers. I was just like, how did she do that?
Yeah.
Like, how does somebody influence that many people? Yeah. I don't know. To me, that's crazy. So yeah, influencer is a legit career.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the only thing she does, but
it's
people can live off of that, apparently.
Because the thing about it, where it becomes influence, right? Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of people, after they saw it, they clicked the tag, they went to your page and just viewed it.
Yeah.
But it was enough people to not just view it, but follow it. And you even had some people go from there to your personal to like.
That's true.
It was such a chain reaction, like that. The influence was that strong, was to not just view your page, which is what a lot of people do. Like, you see somebody tag something, you go look at it.
Yeah, you look, and then it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Or like, that's cute, but I don't need to follow it or whatever.
Right. To not just view, but to like, and not just like, but to purchase.
Yeah. And message and like ask questions. Like, I'm about to order this.
Yeah.
What's the sizing? Da 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 da. I'm like, wait, what? Like, this is real. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so that was interesting.
Yeah, very interesting and cool to watch. Yeah. I was definitely proud of you after I saw that.
Yeah, I didn't send those people over there. So
now I'm saying, because we've been talking about this kind of for a while.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole nother side of the business where, it's not just, okay, partnering with somebody who has a lot of followers, but something that was kind of organic. And yeah, I think she was a good fit for your brand.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, because you could pay for an influencer just because they have a lot of followers or whatever. But if you actually are okay with, like, if you actually have some type of relationship with them and you actually like agree with a lot of the stuff that they say, or like, kind of are in the same, I won't say she talks about sustainability a lot, but she does talk about like healthy lifestyles and like, clearing your mind of certain traumas and things like that. So it's like, okay, I could see where our where we kind of align.
The intersection.
Yeah.
Your crowd and her crowd. And
Yeah.
kind of where they come together.
Yeah. So it made sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Aside from that, that was for you. That was big for you. For me,
yeah.
Top Dogs is coming back.
Yeah.
So if you've been listening to us, following us for a while, you know that 2 years ago, I was a part of starting a new basketball organization, and because of COVID, we didn't participate last year. Now we're back. I'm super excited. I haven't coached at this point probably in like over a year.
So does that mean, like, how does that work? Do you guys schedule games from now, or is it finding a new team and then?
So a lot of the back. So we kind of have the team already assembled, and we kind of have semi-schedule. It's not official yet, but it's starting to move. Like, I bought the insurance for the team already, so it's like, all right, this is about to happen. It's getting real when we start making the purchases. I've been seeing the guys on the group chat talk about practice, so I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get back into coaching. You know, get back in that way. And still, as always, if you want to donate to our organization, I'll put a link in the description. Probably most likely to our Cash App, and you know, feel free. We 501c3, so anything you donate, you can get a tax write-off for it too. But yeah, definitely excited about that. What's coming out of that?
I'm excited too.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I ain't heard nothing else.
Okay. Well, we only had like a couple comments on socials, but we struggled saying biopic or biopic in the last episode.
I still don't know how to say it.
I don't either. But MX Alexandria, Megan, she said that she says
friend of the show.
Yeah. Biopic.
Okay.
Biopic.
Okay.
So I don't know how y'all say it.
Hey man, y'all know what it is. The little documentary thing.
I just say I watched the movie. So
yeah.
Here we go. You know. As always, you can subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcasts. Send us comments on SoundCloud still, right?
SoundCloud. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, no, don't comment on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
No,
just kidding.
Not on SoundCloud.
On Instagram. And you can send us a voicemail at 954-652-6519. And if you want to support the podcast, you can go on our website and look at the promotions that we have right now.
And merch.
Shop. And merch. So let's move on to our current matter.
Okay, so for today's current matter, we're gonna get into some politics, I guess. But mostly, first and foremost, prayers to all the people that are going through it right now in Texas. The weather has been crazy. There's been rolling blackouts. You see all types of like crazy pictures online of water frozen in people's house, pipes bursting. So it's been crazy. And I think one of the big stories that came out of it was the response from Ted Cruz, or lack of response from Ted Cruz, to everything that was going on. So if you don't know, Ted Cruz, senator in Texas, after all this is going on, like people are without heat, without power, he leaves Texas and flies to Cancun to go on vacation with his family. Paid, voted in public official, at a time where
what's the problem?
At a time where your constituents like really need you, you abandon them. And
we already had this plan, so what do you want me to do?
The jokes were endless. Like, it was, I heard one of my favorite ones was like, Ted Cruz is the first person to cross the border to Mexico for a better life, for his family, right? But the thing is, that's kind of what he did, real. Right? That's like,
but we don't. Okay, was he going there to escape what was happening from Texas? We don't know.
It didn't look.
It just looks bad.
Yeah, it didn't look
the
good.
optics are terrible.
Yeah.
my thing is, I didn't even know what was happening until like I saw this compilation of just people posting basically their house flooding, like all over Instagram.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is happening right now? Like somebody's kitchen was just like, he took the little mop bucket and moved it to the kitchen. I was like, that's not going to do nothing. But it's like, what else are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Somebody's whole ceiling fell down with the chandelier on it. I'm like, oh Lord, like, I don't know. So let's backtrack, right?
Okay.
Because I'm assuming it snows / gets cold-ish in Texas.
Yes.
So a lot of people were saying like, oh, the pipes aren't made for this. The pipes aren't made for this. But should they have been? Like, does it ever snow there?
It does.
I've never been to Texas. So
but like, there's like everything, there's levels of cold.
Right.
That level of cold, they weren't ready for.
Because would Florida be ready for something like that?
No, I don't think we would. I don't think we would. It would be bad. But kind of like Texas, that doesn't really go into our infrastructure because it doesn't snow.
Yeah.
It would never happen here.
Because some people were saying, oh, well, it's, whoever's fault voted in whatever pipes those were, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if you think we don't need this,
yeah,
then why would we vote for that? You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't we just get the cheaper option? It's a lot. I feel like I don't know if I was a Texan who I would blame, but obviously, like, you going to Mexico right now.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna get this heat.
It was a terrible look, and I think it was really important, or it hit different because we're like an election cycle here in the city that we live in, Miramar.
Yeah,
and it just makes you like really consider how important it is to vet the people that you put in office, because they're ultimately the ones who make these decisions.
Yeah.
For us, like just in my like personal history, I think of like Miami Beach, right? If you notice, Miami Beach is of course it's outside, it's surrounded by water. They never handle rain properly. Like when it rains heavy in Miami Beach, everything floods.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's crazy because you should know it's gonna rain here.
The thing is though, yes.
All the time.
But the problem with Miami Beach is, where do you send the water once it rains?
Okay.
They're surrounded by water everywhere, so you're pushing water out to the ocean, but then it's coming right back in. So they have an issue with where to displace the water. But I only say that to say this, like, as I've seen them, they've tried for years, but I feel like their government or the city of Miami Beach, they haven't done the proper work to prepare for heavy rain. Like it's just not working. So I think about like us, like if we were to have an issue here, how would it go? And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna look at my ballot for my commission seats a little closer because man, though that local government stuff really matters.
Yeah. But I guess I will say, when you look at, so for us, we have a commission. Well, most municipals and cities have commissions, right? Mm-hmm.
I think all.
Oh, okay. So the people who can run for those seats are regular people.
Yeah, residents.
They're not superheroes.
They're not.
Right? But so like, and we talk about this too. The people who are in these seats, do they have other jobs? Mm-hmm. Is this their full-time job? Like, what's the setup? Right? Mm-hmm. Because if this is your full-time job, then yeah, you're not going to Mexico. Like, this is your job. Like I was even watching, I like watching AOC videos, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but she's just interesting to me. And she was talking about her day, and she was just saying like, sometimes she, her hours vary because you never know what's going to happen. like ever. Sometimes there's a crisis in America and it's just like, okay, like gotta go to work.
Yeah.
And it could be 3 a.m. That's just the job that you signed up for.
Yeah.
But
that's the same job Ted Cruz has, just so you know.
I know, but he's in the Senate.
I'm saying.
I'm talking about like local.
Yes.
Obviously, you're going to be aware if you're like a local commissioner in Miami Beach or whatever, if there's like a shooting somewhere or whatever, but you don't necessarily have to leave your house at that moment or, you know, whatever. I don't know if they have a meeting at that same moment. So I don't know within those cities in Texas and across the US, because it's not just Texas, how they're planning to move forward. And like I don't know, because these are regular people.
They are, but
on the commission seat.
You can mitigate some of the problems by like not voting in bad people.
Yes, for sure.
The city. So one of the other big stories that came out of this was the mayor of a city called Colorado City in Texas. And the mayor basically told the people, we don't owe you anything. That the weak will perish, only the strong will survive. And everyone
voted him in.
Yeah, and it's like, what? How could you be so insensitive at a time like this when everybody's struggling?
Yeah.
He eventually resigned.
You got to.
You don't have
clearly
to.
You don't care about the people.
Yeah.
If you don't, they're gonna boot you out somehow. I don't know how, but it's like, I don't know. I was gonna say something, but we had a whole president who didn't care about people too. So
anyway, so
I guess it's just hard to know what people's ulterior motives are in certain phases of the voting process or election process. Especially when there's not that many people running for certain seats and stuff, and it's just like, oh, y'all just hollering at each other, like yelling at each other, sending crazy mail to my house now. It's not even about what you're gonna do, it's about
attacking character.
And it's just like, y'all the only 2 people running right now. Like this is who we have to pick from.
For me, I just feel like it's taking the time to do the due diligence. You're gonna have to, especially in these smaller elections, all these people don't have websites. They don't, they're not easy accessible, but do your best. So like for me, it's been looking up their Facebooks, if they do have a campaign website, and then like paying super close attention to any town halls that they do, or something where you can kind of get a sense of who you're voting for. Because the more we keep running into these issues, it's becoming more important that we really get to know these people that we're electing in office and being a part of the process.
Like it's not a joke at all.
So your health, safety, and future is at stake at all times. Like with the pandemic, it was the same thing. The counties and the states that had good leadership, they handled it better than others. Like we live in Florida. I mean, you know how that's going. But I think all these, unfortunately, we keep living through all these major catastrophes and things, but like I don't think it's ending anytime soon. If the older we get, the more I'm noticing like how important these things are, how important these people are. And I can't wait for you guys to see our Michel Matter.
So before we get into that, obviously, like you said, prayers out to everybody dealing with everything going on right now, honestly, on top of a pandemic. And I don't think we have listeners in Texas.
We may.
We had 2 guests from Texas, so and they're doing okay. They had to like find a hotel room and everything.
It was bad, man.
But however we can help, let us know if you're listening, and we'll share the word. But yes, to Jox's point, the background of that is, electing people who are going to care about your well-being. And they should care because they should be living near you. So they're affected too. So you were talking about doing our due diligence in getting these people in by like attending town halls and stuff. You recently found a town hall that was happening about our city's upcoming election. How did that go? I was in a Zoom call, so I was popping in and out, but I heard some stuff.
I mean, it went.
And our Michel Matters guest was a part of the town hall, but
it was the one thing I'll say, the people who ran it, they did do a good job of like moderating certain, like they weren't letting the panelists talk bad about their opponent. It was like, look, I asked you a question, answer the question, don't answer it in in relation to my partner. So that was nice. I do wish that it would have been a little more organized as far as like time limits, because some people was going on and on, repeating the same points over and over, and I was like, answer the question. But I mean, for me, it showed me a few things. Like one, there was one candidate who didn't show up at it was a bad look to me.
Yeah, it is.
It shows that
because it's not like you have a website or anything.
Yeah, he doesn't.
That was an incumbent, right?
He's an incumbent. He's been an incumbent since 2003.
Yeah. So it's like
he thinks he's got it in the bag.
Right.
Apparently he's like and I didn't know this, he's a very prominent member in the community as far as like whatever. I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, so he didn't show up. To me, that felt really like disrespectful.
Yeah.
To not show up. And then there's one race where I just feel like it's so much mudslinging, and all throughout the town hall.
Oh my God.
One of the candidates was responding to people in the comments. And like
it was on Facebook Live.
Crazy. It was
on Zoom, but they like broadcasted it through Facebook Live.
It felt so childish.
And
like
people were like, why are you paying attention to us? You should be listening to your opponents, answering questions. And she was just, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
So like in a race where maybe there's not as much information, those behavioral things like really stick out. Like, man, you're just a child. Like you're a grown child.
I also feel like it's Miramar. Like it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, but I feel like this race has been really like you keep seeing all the candidates talking about people tearing down their signs, and it's been like a big issue. With this the different.
I just don't get it though.
And maybe that was me. Like I didn't think those were such big elections.
We're
but
not in DC or nothing.
But one thing that these people do have some power over the budgets, right? So to some people, that's access to money. You control where money goes. People are willing to pay for some sway with people. I mean, it's just the politics of local elections. Like some of these commissioners, whether we want to believe it or not, are taking money under the table to sway certain contracts to certain people. Allegedly. But I see how it can happen.
Yeah.
And that may be why some of these races are so testy, because people don't want to lose, that stream of income.
Yeah. Well, there is one candidate.
More than one, I think. That I'm like motivated by.
Yes, but for sure, one candidate for me that I am motivated by. And she will be coming up next on our Michel Matters.
Yep.
So let's move on.
All right.
All right, guys. So for this episode's Michel Matter, we are very excited to be meeting with Kerri-Ann Nesbeth. And we actually met on a tour of our city. The mayor was doing like a bus tour of the city. It was free. I think it was on a random Saturday. So I went by myself, and Jocks, I think, had a tournament. So it was a pretty cool tour. I think Kerri-Ann was with maybe two friends at the time.
My boyfriend and my younger sisters.
Okay, there you go. And we were like the youngest people on the bus.
Yes, we were.
Okay, cool.
Like, hey girl, you want to come sit with us?
Right. But it was really cool. We got to see like different parts of the city, the police station, all of that. And then we just connected over social media, and I saw that she was running for Commission Seat 1
Let's go.
in the city of Miramar. So I was like,
Yes.
whoa, we have to get her on the podcast. So thank you for joining
Absolutely.
us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I remember, I think even when we did follow each other on social media, we started to realize we had mutual friends as well.
That's true.
And so
Yeah.
I'd see somebody post something and I see you comment. I'm like, how you know my friend?
Right.
What's going on right now? But yeah, I mean, going back to what you said, Jackie, like we were the youngest people on that bus tour. And I remember at certain points, it's like people were talking and I was like, and what about this? And like, tell me more about this. And people then started to really open up. And it was like, yeah, it should be fun, y'all. Like, let's enjoy this bus tour.
And
yeah, but it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. There were a lot of things I actually didn't know about Miramar when I took the tour. And I was like, okay, I need to get a little more involved.
Yeah.
So that brings us to you, right? How did you get interested in this? Like, were you always in Miramar? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, so I grew up in Miramar. I'm a third generation Miramar resident. And so my grandmother migrated from Jamaica and moved to Miramar and bought a home. Wow. My mom then followed her shortly after. And then now here I am as a third generation homeowner in the city of Miramar. And so I actually went to, I mean, the first property tax bill that arrived, I was like, all right.
Right.
But yeah, you know, I am extremely thankful, I think, given my age, and then just like being able to be where I grew up and like having those connections with other family members, like I said, who live here, and then friends, and neighbors who quite frankly become family because we've just grown up with each other, you know? I think one of the things that people are always like is, you actually went to elementary school here in Miramar? And I'm like, yeah, I went to Sea Castle Elementary, go Dolphins. And I literally experienced our city's growth. And so I don't know, how long have you guys been living in Miramar?
7 years.
7 years, we almost said 6.
Yeah. And you all see how different the city has become over that 7 years. It's almost a decade. And so for me, it's been almost 3 decades, right? And so where I live very close to Sea Castle Elementary. This was West Miramar when we lived here, when we moved here, you know? And Palm Avenue was kind of it. It was like, we're at the end of Miramar. Let's, you know, make a U-turn and head on back east, right? And to literally witness the city exponentially grow from Palm being west to now the Everglades being West Miramar. And then the population, like when I was growing up, Miramar was approximately 70,000 people. We're now about to break the 140,000 people mark. And so I know we're about to get into it, but part of the motivation that I said, you know, let me step up and run is my experience in work, in my career. I support school districts nationwide with strategic planning, budget management, and scaling their resources as the number of students that they serve grows. And I'm like, I'm seeing gaps with how our city leadership is handling that for my city. And so that's the exact thing. Like, as we have grown over the last 2 decades, 3 decades even, what level of intentionality has been there consistently over time, so that when the next decade comes, we've actually proactively thought about, you know, the number of police officers and firefighters needed to address our booming population. We've forecast that in the budget. And so we know over these next 10 years, we have to increase revenues by X% to afford to address the needs of our growing population. And when you look at our budget year after year, especially this last budget, that level of long-term strategic planning is just missing. And I think Seat 1 is the one that has the largest gap where the potential needs to be better leveraged.
Okay.
So for me, I'm new to all this politics, and but we're like really involved. Like we try to watch like all the commission meetings on TV and get involved where we can. And I'm still like learning. So like, what do commissioners do exactly?
Great question. Commissioners essentially handle the purse of the city. That's the best way to put it. Commissioners are the ones that They take guidance from the budget department. They partner with the city manager, and they approve what departments exist in our city, how much revenue each department gets, and most importantly, for the general fund, what those funds actually go towards. Do we need to put funds towards supporting the ongoing development of our city and redevelopment of the east side of our city? Or are we putting that towards increasing the number of events that our city has, right? Like those are the types of things they sit down in those commission meetings and decide. They adjust things like what types of grants exist for homeowners and businesses throughout our city, especially when you think about CARES Act funds that just came in. Well, I shouldn't say just, but came in a few months ago. We need more to come in.
Yeah.
They assess, what types of services, like how large our code compliance department is, and is that effectively addressing the needs of our broader community?
Right. Wow. I guess for us, since obviously we're the residents, how important is it to get involved in the commission meeting spaces? And like, I don't know, what advice would you have there? Going from now resident to running in that position.
Yeah, I think even running, I'm still always a resident first, right? And so one of the things for me that I'll just like the elephant in the room is those commission meetings are long.
Yeah,
they're boring. And like the likeliness of someone to actually
sometimes they get a little spicy. Oh my God.
Sometimes they're a little lit, but it's for the wrong reason.
Right.
It's for the wrong reason. It's because of the fighting that's going on, and one person is yelling over the other or threatening the other, which like don't even get me started on that. But let's be honest, like the average resident, including myself, like I'm uniquely invested because I'm a nerd. Like I love politics, I love government. I have ever since I was in middle school, right? But like when I tell my mom to watch it, or my best friend or my boyfriend, right? They're like, what? Like what? Point of order, like motions, like what are they even talking about? And so it's important though for you to even at minimum look at the agenda and see what was approved, because one, it will highlight for you, okay, I pay property taxes, I pay taxes when I'm actually shopping and everything throughout the city. I pay my water bill, I pay my light bill, all of these things. Where is that money going? Like what is it that like my investment, for lack of a better word, is going towards, and who's approving it? And if there is a contentious decision that needs to be made, who is giving them the input and advice for them to make a sound decision that's based on the needs of us residents in the city of Miramar? And to me, if you watch the commission meetings, you begin to actually see that doesn't necessarily exist.
Yeah.
There aren't a lot of community stakeholders in those meetings. There aren't a lot of people stepping up and making comments during the meeting. And a lot of things get done without checks and balances and transparency for us to know exactly what's being decided on at the city level.
Do you think that's like intentional? Like it's a little bit suppressed as far as knowing what information comes out and how to even voice your concern? Because I think most people don't even know when our commission meetings happen or what they even talk about.
Correct. I agree. And I'm curious to know, but how many mailers would you say you guys have gotten from candidates kind of slandering each other?
I got one recently that I remember vividly.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least this week, there's been at least like 2 or 3 that have come in, but I'm pretty sure it's from the same candidate. Bashing another candidate, but you know.
And so to me, this is like a very simple creative solution. The amount of money, time, and investment put into those mailers when people are seeking re-election.
Yeah.
Why not send out a mailer to everyone and say, hey, we had a commission meeting. We had 2 commission meetings during the month of January. Here are 3 to 5 quick bullet points that are digestible so that you know what was discussed, what was decided, and you have a very digestible piece of information that we are extending out to you so you don't have to go seek it. And maybe if we then put a QR code that's like, click here to register for the next
Wow.
meeting.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
People would be like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even know these things happen, and they decide on these type of things at the meeting.
You're giving away all your ideas right now.
No, but that's a good one.
But that is great. That would be.
But
really
that is an example, and you asked me, like, you know, why do I think, is it being suppressed? You know, are they intentionally trying to hide information? I don't necessarily think so. What I think happens, or, you know, is happening, is a level of complacency, right? You know, this is the way things have historically been. You have people on the commission who've been there for literally decades, right?
Yeah.
Or trying to be reelected for another decade, you know? And I think another thing too is the average age of somebody in the city of Miramar is 36, yet the average age of the people on the commission are 55.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about a huge gap. Even you guys said you watch those meetings, you hear how they say, you know, these millennials, you know, like these millennials, and I'm just like, yikes. Even when you think about an inclusion mindset, even if you think that, you shouldn't be saying that on the dais of like these millennials, like these millennials are actually buying homes in the city, right? Like us, right?
Yeah.
We are the ones who have disposable income. We're shopping and dining and doing all sorts of stuff in the city, although we could have more retail stuff here, but that's another story. But like, I think it's a matter of there being a gap between new creative and innovative technological solutions to help boost and share information more widely, and then people doing it like just the way it's always been, status quo. And I think that's where I feel like I'm excited, because it's not just me. There are a couple other millennials who are also running, thankfully for different seats, but like, you know, like, I think that we are at a point where at a national level, at a state level, we have been awoken to see there's a direct correlation with who is elected into office and what that means for my day-to-day quality of life. And I think we are on the verge now of the average 36-year-old Miramar resident being like, hold up.
Yeah.
Who, what, why, when, where?
Correct.
How?
Yeah.
And I think that is allowing people to one step up, like myself, to say, no, I do have the skill set. And in many ways, I have a better skill set than the person I'm running against or the people I'm running against. And it's time for me to bring that to a community that I have an investment in and that I fundamentally care about.
Yeah. So I do want to hit on that millennial standpoint. What kind of fresh perspective, you kind of touched on it, but I guess even for you, or maybe you spoke to the other candidate, you know, running for different seats that are millennials, what fresh perspectives have you guys kind of thought of or would want to see in Miramar?
Yeah. Well, I think the mailer example is a pretty strong one, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is there are a lot of things that are decided on, like we just talked about with the commission meeting. And one thing is it can just be like a resident steering committee or a resident task force, right, that the city creates. And it's something along the lines of, if we're going to be approving something that is, you know, a certain threshold or higher, whether it's 500,000, 750,000, or $1 million, right? If we're going to decide on something that will cost taxpayers $1 million or more, we have to activate this task force of diverse stakeholders in our community and walk them through what the proposal is, why we feel it needs to be voted on, and why we, or not, right? Like the task force will hear arguments from commissioners who feel differently, and then they make a decision or a recommendation. And that recommendation is then taken into consideration when the commission is voting on that item. And I think that a perfect example of why that task force would be meaningful is the billboard. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the billboard controversy in Miramar.
I was gonna bring that up, actually.
The one out west, right?
Yes, like we, and I literally mean us taxpayers paid over $1 million for that billboard to be put up, only for us to then have outcry that, like, what is a high level type billboard doing in the middle of the city, well, in the west part of the city,
right?
And then now they're literally still holding off on taking down the billboard, because it's going to cost money to take the billboard down.
Correct.
And so imagine if we had this task force of community stakeholders, from small business, large business owners, to residents of different socioeconomic backgrounds, immigrants, people from different creeds, right? Different political parties, even, like, to have a true diverse group of people to say, we vote, or we recommend the vote is this because of this.
Yeah.
And then the commissioners are kind of on the hook to say, I'm going to go against the recommendation of the task force because, and they have to actually explain their why, versus this very, sometimes you wonder what is in it for the commissioner and why are they voting that way, especially when it seems obvious that the vote should be a different way.
Yeah.
And so it would force commissioners to actually be held accountable to voicing their why behind their vote, versus just saying yes, no, and sitting back and then it's just approved or not, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I think the thing that really drew me into your campaign at first was, I don't know if you follow me first on social media or if I follow you, but the way you at least promote the small businesses in Miramar, and you always seem to be out and about. Like, for me, that was like, oh, this is someone who, and just going through your page, like, you're third generation Miramar resident, and it's like, no, there's an investment here, like,
Yeah.
and that really drew me in. And I've even gone to like a few places so far because you've gone there. So
hey,
it's working.
I hope you told them I sent you.
Because I think the
cupcake place.
Yeah, the cupcake place.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you go there, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the things I have on my website, is that when I, and a lot of the places I featured, I frequent, right? But then as time went on, people were like, you should also go to this place. And I'm like, dollar and up? We have a dollar store down the street? Like, okay. And so one of the things I hear from all the business owners, pre-pandemic as well, is they don't do anything to help us market that we're here. And it's really hard because people from other cities are coming to us because they're Googling and finding it, but no one and I won't say no one, but not a large amount of people come to our business who are from Miramar. And then when they do, they're like, did you just open? And it's like, no, I've been here for years,
right.
Yeah. And so one of the things is, like, you all see, like, I have my iPhone, I have a tripod, and I'm like, speak loud because we don't have mics, you know? And I'm just like, imagine now if we say, okay, City of Miramar Marketing Department, a new initiative is that we're going to do small business highlights, and the city is going to post these Miramar Monday. I was like, let me just make sure nobody has Miramar Monday before I start doing this Miramar Monday series. And I'm like, no one has it. All right, we're going to coin this as ours. And if somebody steals it, I got my receipt.
Yes, that's it.
But something that seems so simple are the ideas that are not being presented and are not being done. And I'll tell you, like, those small business features, the Miramar Monday videos that I do, they take maximum 20 minutes. And the 20 minutes is usually like either I said something wrong or the person is a little nervous and they, trip up. But we just keep recording, similar to what you guys are doing now. And then we chop it up, and we want it short, sweet, because we also know on social media, people aren't gonna watch a 2-3-minute video, I've literally watched skits that are like 20 seconds and I'm like, I watched a movie just now. But it could be like a half a day's worth of filming, and highlight the businesses in our city that are providing the goods and services that are so unique to us being such a diverse city. We have so many minority-owned businesses as well. And really promoting and making sure that every business that opens up in Miramar remains viable for the long term. And I think those are the small things that will make words start to spread, like, oh, you have a business in Fort Lauderdale. When do you film your Miramar or your Fort Lauderdale Fridays, right?
Yeah.
And then that business owner being like, we don't have, what is that? And it's like, oh, well, over here in Miramar, the city actually comes and films us and highlights us, and we are like a priority vendor whenever they have events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk about morale? Like, you want to talk about pride in your city? Like, those are the small things where you like, it shouldn't be that hard, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a question. So as a resident, right? When we have our commissioners, because I know in other cities, I think the commissioners have like districts. But Miramar, I think it's just 5 commissioners. And I guess you all, I don't know. So the question is more like, do you guys represent the county, or are you representing the citizens, the residents? Because as a resident, like, what can I bring to my commissioner, or are they just agents of the city? Or like, can I bring you my concerns? Can you help me? Like, how does that work?
And the fact that you're asking is indicative of the lack of their ability to share what their role is supposed to be, right? Like, I think, so like you mentioned, City of Miramar does not have districts, right? So like our sister city, Pembroke Pines, for example, they have districts. And so Pembroke Pines is maybe just as large as us in population, but geographically it is more spread out. And so they do have districts, which means when you're running for a commission seat in Pembroke Pines, your district, it will, let's say, University to Red Road on Miramar Parkway, and everything that falls in between is your district. In Miramar, we don't have districts, so every seat is at large. And so what that essentially means is you are still representing the city, right? You're not a steward of the county per se. We have county commissioners who then have districts that are like Miramar, parts of Pembroke Pines, parts of Fort Lauderdale, Coral Springs, right? Like their districts are huge. But if you're a City of Miramar commissioner, you're at large, which means you have to represent everyone all the way west to all the way east. And if you're an effective commissioner, people know about you in all parts of the city. And granted, there will be a few people who just don't pay attention and like, I don't care. I'm trying to change that, but like, let's be real, you know? But your role is to ensure that you are doing enough outreach efforts on an ongoing basis to understand what the residents' needs are and let them know that there is an open line of communication. One thing that we've done on the campaign is sent an email with a survey. And it's like, click here to let us know the top issues that are impacting our city today. That's actually how I built my platform, right? I'm like, I have my purview on what the challenges are in Miramar. My friends and family who are in my bubble may have the same purview, but I might not necessarily know what the Hispanic struggle is in Miramar, what the Muslim community struggle in Miramar is, what, you know, large business owners struggle or small, right? Like I might not have that lens because that's not my lived experience. But in order for me to go and confidently knock on doors and confidently call people and ask for their support, I need to position myself to say, I have done a comprehensive evaluation of what the issues are in our city, and I have the support of 10 different stakeholder groups based on my communication and conversations with them. And I'm committing to doing that same, I'm committed to having the same level of energy, is what I should say, if and when elected, you know, like I'm not gonna, you know, go about my day and be like, you know, they elected me, so it's my decision anyway. No, they elected me, and in order for me to confidently go back and ask for re-election if and when that time comes, they need to be like, oh yeah, no, she kept coming back to me. She took some of what my community told her and infused it into legislation that she pushed forward. Or she didn't vote on that, even though everyone else did, because she understood the ripple effect it was going to have on my day-to-day life.
Yeah. What has running been like so far? I think a lot of people don't even know like how this start, like they could be very well interested in running for a seat like this, but they don't know where to start. I feel like on your social media highlights, your Instagram highlights, you kind of have gone through certain processes with your followers. So like, what has this race been like for you?
Yeah. So I'll back up. I know earlier I said like from since middle school, I was like watching CNN with my grandma and like paying attention, and she was telling me about the history of the African American struggle and the disparities. And then I went to high school, I started taking like AP government and AP history and getting a true comprehensive view on what history and government is about versus the like standard high level version that you get in most classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so the level of disparity and disenfranchisement that the African American community experienced is what inspired me to start paying attention and really forging opportunities for our people to build capacity to then be best positioned to achieve their best, right? And so that's kind of where my inspiration for community involvement started. Now, through that, I worked on campaigns, volunteering, working as like a volunteer lead locally, statewide, and nationally. I worked on the Obama campaign, the Hillary campaign. The very first campaign I volunteered for was John Edwards when I was in high school, way back when. And so I say all of that to say that like, I think I've been acutely aware of like what politics means and like how this all works. But I was never interested in being a candidate. I was like, I want to be the person behind the scenes. But I think when the pandemic happened and I started to really see, okay, wait, the commissioners just raised their salaries by 30% and the pandemic is going on. How dare they?
Yeah,
that's
and
not
then
appropriate.
Cut, I think, funding from or salaries for the police officers
like
too.
furloughing
employees. Yeah. And then months later, while you were benefiting from the salary increase, you are furloughing, you're attempting to furlough employees, which include our first responders, which like if there's any point that we need our first responder, it's during a pandemic, right? And so that got me riled up. Of course, what we saw happen with George Floyd and all the other George Floyds that don't make it to the news that happen every single day. I just was like, that could be our community. It doesn't have to happen miles away, because with the schools I work with, I have some in Minnesota. I would go to Minnesota every month for work. It was like almost my second home at a certain point, and so it can happen anywhere. And so when I put two and two together, I'm like, there has to be some level of intentionality around planning and managing our city. And so all of that to say, those things inspired me to take the leap of faith. Family, friends, neighbors have always said, you should run for something. And I'm like, no. And so I decided to do it once the furlough came about. And so I was like, all right, how do I do this? And so the very first thing was I downloaded an election packet from the City of Miramar website. I then started looking for YouTube videos and like, how do you run for office? I started to attend all of these trainings that like give you some really great advice. I began to lean into the community. So like, I am friends with a few elected officials locally and at the state level. And that is a privilege that I will name, right? Like that in itself is a privilege that I was able to call someone and say, hey, you've done this successfully, like give me some advice.
Right.
And so that coupled with, okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna do this. I had to fill out some paperwork. I had to get a few documents notarized. I then submitted it to the city. I did not capture that part on video because I think I was just so nervous at that point that I was like, oh my God, I just turned in my paperwork. I'm a candidate. I might have drove away from the city blasting that song that's like, I'm a 2020 presidential candidate. Like, that's me. And so I then was like, okay, holy crap, like I have to get a website. And I have system administration experience that like did Salesforce and a lot of other applicant tracking systems. So I built my own website. I sent it around to like family and friends for feedback. I fine-tuned it. And then I was like, okay, should I use my personal social media? I already got a lot of followers. I won't start from scratch. So, we can just build. And everybody was like, nah. Like, no. You need to have your own separate profile. So I did that. The thing that was the hardest part was setting up my campaign bank account.
Okay.
Because you have to have everything separate, right? And like, you wouldn't even want to have them combined because that's a whole other thing. But legally, you do have to have everything separate. And so I went to Bank of America. I went to Chase. I went to Regions, and I just was like, what? Where do I open a bank account? Y'all just keep telling me no.
Right.
How do I do this? And so I went to Wells Fargo, and they were like, yeah, sure thing, Miss Nesbeth. And I was like, so you mean to tell me if I had just came here first,
Yeah.
Pretty much.
we would have been good. So then that was one hurdle, and I was like, okay, whew, check. And then I was like, okay, online donations. It's COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
It's also 2020. Like, we need to have online donations set up. So that was another process. Finding a vendor, getting approval, linking it to the bank account, and making sure everything worked smoothly. So when I launched, everyone knows launch day, even if you are opening a small business, is going to be like a very productive day. Everything is set up to go. And so I did all the things. I said a prayer before I posted my announcement. And ever since that day, it's been a roller coaster of, mental and emotional wins and losses. And then I think the other thing too is I've been working full time up until yesterday. Actually, like I started a 30-day leave from work to give it all I've got, right? These last 30 days. So regardless of outcome, I can look back and say I did everything in my power to secure a win. But from when I announced last year summer to yesterday, I was still working full time, which is approximately 55, maybe 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
And that, coupled with running a campaign full time and trying to call people for, donations, for votes, trying to make sure that I'm going to as many doors as possible, right? Like it's essentially opening a small business, right? Like, and you all have an amazing, successful podcast. It's the same things I'm sure you all had to think through about your marketing, your branding, your budget, your reach, right? Those very things are what I've had to do with the campaign. And I'm saying but it is definitely a we. I have an amazing team from my boyfriend who's doing communications for the campaign. So a lot of what you all even see on social, I'm not even going to take the credit. But to my mom putting together like volunteer bags, to my younger sisters putting sticky notes on flyers because our phone number changed from when we first launched, so I needed to put the new phone number. Like it's a machine, and with like every machine, every, I would say, typical machine, it requires fuel, and I've had an amazing support system, even when I have my challenging days of like, I can't do this. Like, who was I to think that I could do this? Because someone told me to my face, you can't win, or you're too young, you need to go have kids and get married first. Or, let me tell you how you should be talking to the people about what is it that they need. Those are all the types of things. And I'm just like, is it my age? Is it that I'm a woman? Is it that I'm a Black woman? Is it all those things put together?
Yeah.
And, I think running for office is amazing when you're doing it for the right reasons and when you have a solid support system behind you. But if you don't have those things, it can break you. I've definitely had some moments where I'm just like, this is tough, and I just want to get some ice cream and go watch a movie and just like turn off. Yes, Cleveland's ice cream. Free plug.
There you go.
And just turn my phone off and not think about work or the campaign. And I think I definitely do have those days. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm I'm on go 24/7 every single day, but it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. But it's worth it.
Okay.
For sure.
So officially, who are you running against for Commission Seat 1?
I'm running against an incumbent.
Okay.
I'm just joking. I'm running against Maxwell Chambers, and the other opponent's name is Chris Koval. And the three of us are running for Seat 1. And so, like we said, that's not a district, it's just a differentiator. There's 5 seats, Seat 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the mayor is Seat 5, just from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
So do you choose which seat you go for? Or
Yes.
So
You
what
do.
made you choose seat 1?
Whew. I mean, I think there are a lot of flaws that I have definitely pointed out. I think really what it boils down to though is leveraging the full potential of the commission seat. And so even when I talked earlier about raising the salaries of commissioners, my opponent led the charge to raise those salaries, right? And so that was one thing I was like, what are we doing here? And like, what is that based on? Who said that they believe that's how our funds should be used, you know? And then I think the other piece too is just when it comes to leveraging grassroots outreach so that you are addressing every single resident, you are making sure that you're privy to what the needs are of the community at large. I don't feel like that's being done with an intentional perspective and outlook. And I also don't think, just based on his voting history, that there is a level of understanding of the long-term viability of our city and how a vote of yes or no on something determines the ability for us to really say, we're voting on this today, and over the next 5 to 10 years, this is what the long-term impact is going to be. And if, you know, like before I decided to run, I definitely attempted to have conversations and ask questions. I did it with every commissioner. And there were definitely a couple that I was like, okay, strong answer. Awesome. Thank you. And my opponent is one that just didn't really have the type of responses that I know my colleagues at my working place would expect from me. And so if I'm asking, and I'm asking for data, or I'm asking you to explain, you know, what's your vision for the city 5-10 years from now, so that, you know, not anytime soon, but, you know, at some point when I decide to have the 4th generation of a Miramar resident, I can visualize what that future looks like. And unfortunately, I think seat 1 has a lot of potential for it to be a seat that really leans into what you can truly do as an elected official, like requiring new businesses that come in to hire X% of their new workforce to be residents in Miramar. So they don't just come in and get tax incentives for being in our city, but we are feeling a piece of that economic growth, because now you are decreasing our unemployment rate, which I will say is not high. We haven't seen numbers since the pandemic has started though. But imagine now you can say we have homegrown, effective residents who can fill the gaps of what you need in your business, right? And they're like, I'm coming to Miramar because they have the workforce there, and my recruitment cost is going to be low because I know the very people that live there can do the work that I need to be done.
Yeah. Wow. How do you, so I'm gonna get a little personal, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you like maintain, because you said it could be challenging, there's ups and downs. How are you maintaining like life as well as going for this position right now? You said you had a boyfriend, so obviously people aren't gonna try to, you know, swipe left or right. But if people like, you know, most of our lives have been on social media at this point.
Yeah.
As millennials. So how are you kind of keeping the, you know, crazy pictures or, you know, ex-posters and stuff out of that? Like,
yeah. So I think I'm hearing 2 questions. One is, how am I balancing work, life, campaign?
Yes.
And then I think the other half of the question is, as someone who's used social media, how am I being cognizant of what I post and whether or not it can be used against me? Okay. So the first half is I'm not. I like I said, like the support system has been, they've given me a lot of grace, because there have been a lot of canceled brunches, a lot of canceled, let's just get a bottle of wine and watch a movie and pop some popcorn, right? Like I'll be like, yeah, next week, Friday at 8 works perfect. And then Friday morning, I mean, it happened today. I'm like, you guys, 5 o'clock is perfect. Let's do it. And like midday, I'm like, hey, can we do 5:15? Because this call came up and then I have to speak to this person. And so they've given me a lot of grace. I've had to carve out pockets of time for myself to really say, okay, you've been going full speed, even if you don't want to. you actually do need to take a break, because you're going to push yourself beyond a point that you can return from if you don't take a deep breath, know that it's impossible to get everything done within 24 hours, and get some sleep so you can start and do this again tomorrow. And so, I mean, obviously there have been I can probably count on one hand how many times Dante, my boyfriend, and I have like said, okay, like it's Friday night, we're gonna do takeout and like watch WandaVision, which is my new obsession. So good, it's so good. And then I think the second half of your question related to like just social media and everything, I will say I have never been that person that posted about everything on my socials to begin with. Like I've always been that person that's like, I don't need you to know that me and my boyfriend are doing this, or that me and my sister are doing that. If you even go to like my personal Instagram, I think I have less than 365 photos up, and I've had it for years, right? So I don't even have a year's worth of photos posted on there, you know?
Right.
And that also means that when you do post, you get a lot of likes. But you know, I think it's interesting because I feel like in many ways, and I'm not saying I don't have questionable stuff out there, but I have never really posted anything that in the back of my head, I'm like, if my employer saw this, would they feel comfortable, you know, claiming me as an employee? And I've always had that lens, even before running for office. And so running for office, and that's why I was like, I can just use my personal ones. There's no big deal, you know, because I was like, you know, posting articles about what happened down the street on Channel 7, you know, like it wasn't anything that was like, oh, look at me turning up, you know, at this party. Like you might have got a 10-second clip where you're like, what is she doing? But like, I wasn't posting anything that I would feel, oh my God, they got a glimpse of this photo, you know? So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So I did want to go back because you said you made a website, which very appreciative of that, because you wouldn't, like us as residents looking into every candidate, which we typically do. Yeah. It was like, oh, you're out because you don't even have a website. I don't even you don't even have Instagram. You don't even have a Facebook, like nothing. Right. So I do want the people to know, like, what are you talked about your top 3 kind of main, you know, points that you're running for and want to see. What is like your stance, or like, what is it that you're really running for to change in the city?
Yeah. So I don't think we got into this a ton, but I started my career in municipal government. So I started working at North Springs Improvement District, which my work there was really about ongoing compliance for water quality throughout the entire district. And that district covered Coral Springs, Margate, and parts of Parkland. And so knowing and understanding the impact that water quality can have on things like canal erosion are still near and dear to my heart. And so there's that. I worked at the Clinton Foundation, where I got access to public-private partnerships and what, you know, needs to be done to actually track impact over time. And then for almost a decade now, I've been working in education. Started on the path to become a teacher and was like, this is not for me. But I knew ultimately I wanted to leverage my skills in data and operational management and strategic thinking in education. And so I've been on the administrative side of education, helping school districts nationwide with recruiting, developing, and retaining teachers, especially diverse teachers, which we know no matter where you go, there's a dearth of those folks. Yeah. So that's a perfect segue into access to a quality education, no matter where in the city of Miramar that you live. And people often say, well, isn't that a school board thing? Like, what can you really do as a commissioner as it relates to education? And I think, again, it goes back to that creative solution, right? Like coming up with things that are out of the box because they can have an impact. And so in my work, I work to foster a space for school leaders to come together to discuss what are some of the challenges you're experiencing? What are some best practices that you put forward so that the next school leader doesn't then have to reinvent the wheel? They can then say, okay, you're a fellow principal. You've done this. You've increased family and parent engagement by leveraging partnerships with your PTA organizations, for example, or developing a committee with students and parents to really assess what is it that they need for you to then create that structure to increase student outcomes. And so I would love to bring that to the city of Miramar. In addition, I've actually been on the City of Miramar Education Advisory Board for the past few years, and I created our inaugural citywide scholarship fund. And so year one, I think we gave one scholarship for like $1,000. And last year we gave almost 10 scholarships out to 10 Miramar students. And so leveraging that at a citywide level to just increase the amount of impact that we can have for students in Miramar. And it goes back again to that pride in the city, right? Oh, you went to Fort Lauderdale High School. How much did they give you for a scholarship? It's like, we don't have scholarships. Oh, well, Miramar, we got scholarships. You know,
Right.
like it's all about making Miramar like the premier city for innovation and creative solutions. So one is education. Next to that, it would be reimagining our public safety. So you talked about, you know, not paying our first responders, which includes police and fire. I think it goes back to scaling our resources as we grow. And so I think I gave an example earlier. Our population, our geographical size has increased, but the number of police officers that we have has remained the same.
Yeah.
And we have a retention challenge.
Yeah.
And so in one breath, it's like, well, we need to address that. We are growing, yet the same number of police officers are on duty for a shift that literally from a math, just a pure math standpoint doesn't make sense.
Doesn't work.
But in the same breath, to avoid challenges that we're seeing in our, right here in our city, right? Like every police department, every first responder unit has some bad apples, but what are we doing to intentionally avoid that from growing? Let's have diversity, equity, and inclusion training for all police officers and forge more community partnerships so that we see our police officers on a regular basis versus just when something happens, right?
Yeah.
And if we had the staff in order to then effectively do that, so it's like the chicken and egg thing, right? Like, but we have to address both. And then under public safety is also the water quality that I brought up earlier, right? Working to ensure that our water quality, our air quality, our transportation systems, our infrastructure is all still sound as more and more of us are using our resources every single day. You're growing, more people are turning on that tap water and expecting clean quality water to come out of that faucet. And we take that for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But we also see cities, I know I keep using Fort Lauderdale, I swear I'm not picking on them. But we see cities like Fort Lauderdale that are constantly having pipes breaking and bursting, boil water effects, and like every city is just one permit or compliance rule break away from that. And so we need to be cognizant of that as well.
Yeah.
And then I have a couple more, but I think the other one that I would definitely highlight is fostering inclusion. And so we are so diverse. Our mayor touts the level of diversity that we have everywhere he goes. And I would just tie on to that and say, with that amount of diversity, we have to prioritize intentional activities and legislation to ensure that we are inclusive of everyone here. So no one feels like, oh, this is, you know, this side of Miramar is this certain people, or that side of Miramar is this certain people. Or people feel like, again, decisions are made without their input, and then it has an impact on their day-to-day life that wasn't expected. Well, it's because they weren't included as a thought partner before decisions were made. And I think a specific policy that I want to put forward is having schools in our city, businesses, and public spaces commit to an open to all pledge. So it's regardless of your race, ethnicity, your socioeconomic status, your creed, your sexuality. You feel like you are in a safe, welcoming, and respectful environment where you can show up authentically, and you can do so whether Miramar is your home or you're a visitor.
Right.
So I feel like we could do this all day. But I did have one more question. I wanted to know your thoughts on the improvements that they're looking to do on like the east side of Miramar. With the technology, I think, center and the new parks.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Are you looking forward to that? Or? No.
I think I have two reactions, to be quite frank. I think one is revitalization of our historic side of Miramar is definitely something that residents on that side have been saying they want and need for years. However, I think this goes back to putting forward a solution without having key stakeholders have a seat at the table for the entire duration of the development of that solution. And so what happened was this process was thought of and planned out. And yes, there were definitely spaces for community members to come and provide input. But if you go back and look at when those spaces were created, it was a Tuesday at 11 a.m. in Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
Who, I can't make that time.
Yeah.
Can you?
Right.
And so if I'm a community member and I'm like, I fundamentally don't agree, or I suggest this needs to happen in order for it to be conducive to me and for me to feel like it's addressing the need to revitalize and redevelop the East Side, and I can't make that, what's the secondary option? Is there a survey that is sent electronically that I can fill out on demand whenever I can so that you still collect the information?
Yeah.
And I think my biggest critique is not whether or not it will address the need, because I'll be honest, like I don't see what studies or reports they might have had access to before they voted on it, right? But based on speaking to the people, their biggest concerns are traffic, overpopulation, and then with that overpopulation, it taking a toll on the infrastructure there. So you'll have this beautiful new innovative hub, and then everything on the outskirts of it will start to kind of deteriorate because it can't keep up with the newly developed area in the middle, right? And then the second thing is just there's a lack of scaling of our resources now where they feel like code compliance isn't keeping up to par with the things that need to be done. And so they're just like, and so what's the plan to not only get it up to par now, but then when more people are here? And so imagine now if rather than just an 11 o'clock a.m. meeting on a Tuesday, you were to say, all right, we're going to develop a task force, and it's going to include a disproportionate amount of people who live on the east side and historic side of Miramar. I also want someone from the west side and the central side, because they should also be aware and privy and provide input based on their lived experience on that side to say, well, actually, they built something over here, and here's how we addressed it, right? And then the business owners in that area, did you talk to them about the ripple effect that hub is going to have on the foot traffic or anything like that in their community? And then from there, that task force is the liaison for the broader community in the east side, and you task them with making sure everybody fills out that survey so that you have input to make your decisions based on. And that to me is just like, again, why isn't this happening? Like, why is it such a like monumental idea that, people are like, I really love that, I'm going to vote for you, I'm thankful. But it's also like effective leadership on any level in any industry should have the lens of how can I ensure that the people who this is going to directly impact have a say in it, so that when we do make a decision, we can lean on the very folks that joined us on this journey to say, yeah, we understand you didn't get everything you wanted, but this was the best solution that made everyone have a piece of what it is that they needed to be true in order for them to feel comfortable with it, versus the majority feeling like this was decided upon me versus with me.
Right. It's good.
You got anything else?
No, I feel like that those were the main points. And honestly, I just hope that people listening who do live in Miramar vote on, is it March 9th?
Yep.
March 9th.
So just remind people where they can find you and how they can vote, where they can vote, all that stuff.
Yeah, so you can vote only 2 ways for this municipal election. Unlike the presidential election or even the gubernatorial election, there is no early voting, unfortunately. So you can vote by mail. You can request your vote by mail ballot all the way through February 27th. I recommend, though, that you request it as soon as possible so it gets to you on time. Or you can vote in person on March 9th from 7 to 7 at your polling station. So again, there's no early voting, which means you only go to the library if that is your precinct.
Yeah.
You should go to Kerri-Ann-Nesbeth.com to learn more. But also, if you want to verify your voter registration status, request your vote by mail ballot, or see where your precinct is to go to on March 9th, that's Kerri-Ann-Nesbeth.com/how-to-vote. And then the last thing, as Jackie said, like, if you are in Miramar, definitely remember to vote. But even if you're not in Miramar, sign up to volunteer with us, because we are trying to get to as many residents as possible. Go to Kerri-Ann-Nesbeth.com/volunteer. And you'll be able to say, do you want to volunteer virtually or in person? Or do you want me to come and speak to people who you know in Miramar directly? And lastly, donate. It takes a lot. If you follow me on social, or if you've just been listening, it takes a lot of money to ensure that we can afford signs, to ensure that we can afford text messages to voters, ensure that we can actually pay for the system that allows us to phone bank and track notes at the same time. And quite frankly, to even just like purchase mailers that we talked about earlier, right? Like those pieces of mail that go to people's inboxes are probably one of the most expensive things for a campaign to send out. And so $25 or more, and that's Kerri-Ann-Nesbeth.com/donate. So yeah. And lastly, you can just call me. If you're like, I don't want to go to the website, I don't want to email you, 786-494-8122, and you'll get me.
Nice.
Well,
right.
as a believer, I won't say if, I'll say when you become commissioner.
Yes.
I look forward to the work you're gonna do, and yeah, I mean, I feel like I learned a lot, and I've been living here in Miramar for 7 years, and this is the most I've learned about Miramar.
Good. I say, regardless of outcome, the fact that our generation and younger are paying attention and are like, wait, what? Who are these people and what's going on? Like, that in itself is a win, because that means more people are cognizant of, oh, there are elections right here in our backyard.
Right. Yeah. And we'll definitely be at the meetings, you know. It's not just like, we'll be accountable too. So
you're gonna be like, listen, Kerri-Ann, on the podcast,
right. Exactly.
And when you become commissioner, I got a couple permits I might need to
okay. All right.
Oh gosh.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Of course, thank you for having me and creating a space. Truly, it means a lot. And once this is all done and I do have a work-life balance, we all need to go get some drinks or something.
Yes, right. For sure.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. All right. So for this episode, we do have a listener matter question.
Okay.
And as you know, you can email us at michelmatters@gmail.com with any questions, or hit us up on Instagram at Michel Matters, or Twitter at
Coach_JOX.
Perfect. All right. So they said, what were some of the deciding factors in buying your home? What made you choose Broward County?
Oh man.
Well, I'm gonna start off and say I didn't even care to buy a home when we were first
very true.
Like engaged. I feel like a little before we were engaged, that's when we were like, okay, where would we live? But buying a home wasn't even in my thought process.
Yeah.
Because at that age, I didn't know anybody else who had bought a home yet. Nobody bought a home yet. None of our friends did.
No.
Except for like investing purposes, I guess. But yeah. But they weren't even in our life at the time to even like share that that's what they were doing. So honestly, it wasn't in my plans. Frontal brain. So that's his question.
I mean, for me, I think, that was just like the long-term thinking that my parents was like drilling in my head when we first started talking about getting married, and it was like, all right, buy a house. And we were thinking we don't got no money to buy a house. We're gonna.
So we thought.
Yeah, because it's a whole process. I feel like we've talked about this before, but just our buying process where we originally were like approved for a really low amount.
Mm-hmm.
So to us at that point, homes were not an issue. Like they were not even in consideration because the loan that we were approved for was just so low.
Yeah.
But then
we were also with just
it was a whole different situation.
A whack team, I should say.
Yeah, we reset. We got all our stuff together. And yeah, I think the main factors once we got reapproved, for me at least, we're finding a home that were as like turnkey as possible. I didn't want any fixer-uppers, no home improvement projects. I wanted something that was for the most part done.
Interesting.
That was like key because a lot of times to do some of those projects, you need cash or you need enough money in the loan to buy the home and do renovation. And we didn't have that possibility. We didn't have the cash and our loan amount was so low, it's hard to find a home under the amount with room to renovate. It was like, we need something that's going to come ready.
Yeah. I think too, the market at the time, like even though we were approved for lower the first time, we still could have found something. And we actually did find a couple of things.
We did.
So it was just a better market to me as far as what the homes were worth.
For sure.
To buy.
The market is definitely out of whack right now.
It was a buyer's market when we bought.
Yeah.
So
now a seller's market for sure. Aside from that, I don't really think I had too many like I needs on my list.
I don't know that
I wanted a pool, but I didn't need a pool.
Yeah. You did? Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah. I didn't need it though. But if I got it, I got it.
Yeah, you got it.
Access to like highways and stuff wasn't a big thing, but it was like, okay.
That's South Florida though.
It is, but not everywhere.
Have access.
Not everybody.
To a highway.
Not that
like,
you don't have access.
Unless you're like way west.
But near access. Like we're really close to like
the
term.
You don't have to say where we live.
You can't tell just by that.
I guess. But okay, I guess. So what were the deciding factors? Honestly, the price.
I mean, was big. Of course. That determines everything.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I've been joking around that like Jocks has plans for my life that I don't even know.
It's not
so
true.
I feel like
it's not true.
Like so he basically was like, this is the house. We're gonna put an offer today. And I was just like, okay.
When I saw
it wasn't that easy, but yeah, I was like, okay.
She cried.
She
didn't want it. She cried.
And I love it.
It made me feel terrible, but now she doesn't want to go anywhere else.
No, I love it now.
And as far as like choosing Broward County, that was not our first choice.
No.
We definitely wanted to stay in Dade originally.
Yeah, we both grew up in Miami.
Yeah, so.
Our parents are in Miami. Our friends were in Miami. All of our friends were in Miami. So we were like, why? We both worked in Miami. But life changes all the time. So it's like, just because you work in Miami now doesn't mean you work in Miami forever. Like things change. And it was actually our realtor. Shout out to Chandra. I'll link her episode somewhere up there. She was like, why don't you guys look into Miramar or like Broward in general?
Yeah.
But she specifically said Miramar. And I was like, why?
Yeah.
Why would we? Like,
we definitely limited ourselves.
Yes, we did. Because at some point we were like, okay, well, we'll just get a townhome in Miami. Which, no shade to townhomes. I just don't like.
Yeah.
I don't like
cookie cutter houses.
Yeah, I don't like when it's like a community and you gotta wait at the gate and you gotta do this and you gotta like everybody's house literally looks the same and there's only like 2 paint colors on the outside of everybody. I don't know. Stuff like that just
it turned you off.
It turns me off.
You wanted something where you could kind of have a little more freedom.
Yeah, make the house look like my house.
Yeah, neighborhood, easy access. So that was big. And I think I like where we landed.
Yeah.
I think we fit the area that we live in.
Yes.
So yeah, it wasn't our first choice, but it was a great choice in the end.
Yeah, now we like know our neighbors.
Jackie's involved in all the town halls and politics. So
the politics. Yeah, I like it. I don't know. So if you're looking into Broward County, you could look into Miramar, Pembroke Pines as well. That's not far.
Yeah.
What else? What other area in Broward do you like?
Do I like?
Yeah. Not much.
No.
Okay.
Maybe something out west eventually.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I like out west. I like space. And I like the freedom to do whatever I want to do. Garden, whatever. Ride my bike. There's a lot of trails in Broward. More so than Miami, I think.
It depends. I've run into a lot of trails down south, like as I've been working.
Like what, Homestead South?
No, like I mean Kendall South.
Okay, that's south.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody taking a bike down there. But yeah, I think I don't know. It's very like family friendly, and then they're also Broward is changing a lot, so I feel like there's a lot of condos popping up, and so they're trying to bring in a younger crowd, even though there is there's universities and stuff. So that's how we landed there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hope that answered your question.
Yes. Let's move on to the business spotlight.
All right. So for our business spotlight, we wanted to highlight a restaurant that we went to recently for our anniversary. We went for brunch. It is, I don't know how to describe it. I guess I should name the business first.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so the business is Red Rooster in Overtown. The owner is like the famous chef Marcus. I've definitely forgot his last name, but he's all over like all the chef stuff.
The chef stuff.
Yeah, the chef stuff. Like if you know chefs, like Chef Marcus.
Marcus Samuelson.
Marcus Samuelson. Thank you. Thank you, Google, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm not sure. We went during brunch, but I know they have dinner menu, lunch menu.
Yeah.
I would recommend you get a reservation.
Yes.
Before you go, because it's super popular. I feel like it's still pretty new though.
To us. Because I think there's a Harlem location.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if it's closed now, but because it was even in the book that I was reading.
Okay. That the Red Rooster.
So I guess there was a Red Rooster back in the day in Harlem.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's like he just kind of extended it to today. But yeah, it's the same Red Rooster, just now in Overtown, which is cool. That he's keeping it in,
historically black
neighborhoods.
Yeah. Jackie loved like the vibe. I liked it too.
I loved it.
It was like bustling. Like you walk in, it's live music. It was a Sunday. It was a band in there singing gospel music.
Yes. And
right
I was
by
like,
the bar.
hold on. We're in church for real? I think it's because too, I hadn't been to brunch in a long time.
That's
obviously, because
true.
it's a pandemic. Even though y'all still go to brunch, but
you are one to judge.
For me, I was like, oh my gosh, like brunch is really nice.
Yeah.
I forgot.
You forgot.
I forgot how good this was. But no, we sat outside and it was like a covering. We were like by this big tree.
Yeah. It's a good mixed indoor outdoor seating. Yeah, it's a good mixed use space. Like you're outside, but you still kind of feel inside, but you're outside. Like it was nice.
Yeah.
Like there's a big, like Jackie says, there's a big tree in the middle of the outdoor seating, but that's covered. So it feels real authentic. Like I'm definitely outside. There's a big tree right here.
Yeah.
So it was dope. The food was really good. The menu, I mean, he's a top chef, so it's very culinary based. Like they don't just make standard anything. Everything has like a little twist to it.
I think we had like some donut, some
It was
guava.
It was guava and cheese donut.
But it was like a donut hole.
Yeah, and it had like a guava and cheese filling.
I don't know if it had a filling. It had a dip though.
Oh yeah, you're right. It did have a dip.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was good. Maybe it was filled with something. I don't remember, but I remember the dip, and it was really good.
No. It was filled with guava and cheese. It had like a cream cheese or something. I can't remember.
I don't know.
It had some
good.
type of dip.
We have to go.
It was
back.
really good. Yeah, it was really good. I would want to go for like dinner and not just.
That's true.
Brunch
it's
again.
probably more low key for dinner.
I hope so.
Because I feel like everybody was like on 100.
Yeah.
At brunch.
Yeah, it was popping.
Yeah. We even saw the Hungry Black Man there.
Yes, he was there. I don't think he was reviewing though.
Okay.
But he was there.
Yeah.
So you know it's good if he showed up.
So yeah, so that was cool. Definitely check it out. Overtown looks a lot different today.
Yeah.
Than even like 10 years ago.
They're moving in. Yeah.
But you know, it's nice to see that like there's still us there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. And then when we were waiting, there was like the little trap house thing.
Yeah, there's a mobile version of the Trap Museum.
Yeah.
In Miami right now. I guess it travels all around the country. So it's not just in Atlanta. I think it's like a small trailer almost.
Yeah.
And they do like a mobile version of the museum.
Yeah.
We didn't go. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it felt like appropriation. Just seeing the people running it. I didn't feel comfortable.
But it's T.I. that owns it. Still.
Yeah, but I saw the people there, and before I knew, it just felt weird.
Yeah, we were like, are they knocking it off? And then we had to go on Instagram and see, oh, okay, this is like actually affiliated.
It didn't feel authentic to me.
But I just didn't feel like paying for
I would only go to the real one at this point.
To take pictures.
But yeah. So, and attached to the Red Rooster, they have like an ice cream parlor. I didn't know that at first.
I didn't see that.
Only because I walked in the wrong door. Oh. So the door I went into was the ice cream parlor. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, no. The front door is the next one. Like, okay. So that was cool. So I kind of want to try that next time when we go for dinner. Finish with the dessert. Little dessert after.
Okay.
Some light.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely check it out. We'll probably, like I always, put photos for the business highlight. So it'll be on our Instagram highlight if you want to see what we ordered. And yeah, let us know if you go and if you like it.
All right. Another episode in the books.
Yep.
Hope y'all enjoyed it.
Bye.
See ya.
When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That you might work, ayy. When I pull up on you, then I might swear, ayy. Double off deuce, ayy. That you might work, ayy. That you might work. That you might work.